Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus, and welcome back. So, a couple weeks ago, I wanted to do this. I wanted to talk about the top 5 risks to your business for allowing bring your own device, or BYOD is what it's normally called. So let's get to it. Number 1, you have no clue who uses a personal computer. Whether it's Apple or whether it's Microsoft, if it's a personal device that somebody's using at home, you have no idea who else is using it. Most of the time, it could be their kids, their spouse. You don't know what that person's doing on it. You don't know what those people are doing on it, which also presents a risk to your business, because if you're allowing somebody to use that personal device to access business data, and it depends on how you're doing it, it's definitely a risk. Number 2, the personal device may be on an insecure network. If they're sharing a network with other people on the network, which most of the time is going to be the case, somebody could get like some sort of malware that could spread throughout their entire network and infect your machine, or affect the machine that they're on, which would then in turn infect anything that they're doing for your business, potentially. Number 3, you can't verify personal devices are being updated. One of the things that we do when we're managing devices is we make sure that we're doing firmware updates, we're updating them all the time, we're updating Windows applications, we're looking at all that because that's important. One of the biggest risks to your business is when you leave vulnerabilities active for a long time, people can get in and they can exploit them, and they can do things like ransomware or other types of malware attacks. With personal devices, people tend to be a little lax about that, about automatically patching, about making sure that they actually are running like even legitimate operating systems. Sometimes will be pirated, and some of the software will be pirated, which we'll kind of get into. So that's definitely a risk to allowing people to bring their own device. Number 4, the personal devices may have already been hacked. So there's a couple stories that I kind of want to cover during this. One of which was from 2018 to 2020. Nord actually put this out. They do VPN, but this is more. I don't know if this is for them to drive business, but they did a study, and apparently between 2018 and 2020, there was more than 1.2 terabytes of data actually stolen from over 3.2 million Windows PCs. Now, they also stole 26 million login credentials. So what does that mean? That means they had 26 million ways to log in as a user into things. And the way they did this is they used things like they stole cookies, they used keystroke loggers, so when people typed in passwords, they stole those. Now, in addition to that, it was spread by pirated video games, Photoshop, and other cracked software. So people were basically wanting to get free software, so they downloaded it. They would say like free Grand Theft Auto or free whatever, and they download it, install it, and it actually installed malware on their machine. Now, if they were using that same machine to access your corporate data, there's a risk that, one, you had a data breach that you didn't know about, because they were recording all of the keystrokes, probably the screens as well, of everything that they were doing on your data. And that's where number 5 comes in. You may have already suffered a data breach and you don't even know it. If you go back to the previous story, and we can add another story on there. Crack games have also been used to introduce crypto mining, which brings us to ransomware. If you allow personal devices to access your corporate network, maybe you're doing VPN, right? You're a small company, you want people to get access to their files, they work from home, pandemic, and you allowed them to install the VPN software on their computer, and they are able to get into your network. Well, guess what? What I just talked about means those same vulnerabilities, those same hackers had access to your corporate data as well. How do you prove that they didn't access it? How do you prove when somebody logged in their email that they weren't recording it and they were using that data, exfiltrating data from your business, and you didn't even know about it and you've had a breach? So bring your own device is great. I get it. You don't necessarily want to buy a corporate device for employees. However, if you don't take the right precautions, you run into those 5 risks. So let's talk about maybe what we can do to mitigate those risks. Well, there are some policies out there. You can do mobile device policies where you can try to separate corporate and personal data. It works better on like cell phones, so like Android, iOS, iPads, stuff like that. But there's also ways to do it on actual computers. But that requires people to also sign off on a policy that you're installing software on their personal device. And a lot of people don't like that. So you have to have a bring your own device policy in your company, and you have to have an acceptable use policy as well. So now you're thinking, okay, well, what do I do? Okay, there's a couple ways around this. If you don't want to buy an actual device for somebody, if you don't want to buy a laptop for somebody, what you can do, or a desktop, what you can do is you can run something called a virtual desktop. We can do it in like Microsoft or Amazon if you really want to, but Microsoft's an easier way to do this. They have a new one coming out. They just announced yesterday. It's called Windows 365. I'll talk about that later. You could give them a desktop they can log into in the cloud from the personal device, and it still protects your data. Now, will it protect you from the keylogger part? Probably not, but they should be running antivirus. So the bring your own device policy that you have in your company should be like, you have to be running antivirus that's up to date. You have to be using an operating system that isn't pirated. It isn't jailbroken like a phone, so you can sideload applications that you shouldn't be allowed to. And then they can access this desktop. They can do their work. We can block the ability for them to copy files in between, which protects you from a standpoint of they're not going to be able to like exfiltrate a bunch of data from your business and steal it. Those are the type of things you have to think about when you allow personal devices in a corporate network or even a small business network. It doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. So what I want to know from you, comment down below, how many of you have allowed this? That's what I'd like to know for this week. How many of you allow personal devices to be used in your business, that they can access business data? Because there are ways we can do it. Like I said, mobile phones are a lot easier to do. We can actually separate out personal and work data, and then we can selectively wipe it if an employee leaves. But if you allow them to use personal computers, and whether it's an iPad, whether it's a Windows PC or Mac, they could just take the data, put it on their PC, and even if you fire them, there's no recourse. You're not going to be able to get that data back. They have it. So comment down below. Do you allow this? Do you have a bring your own device policy in your company? I want to know. So until next time, be safe. And again, if you have any questions, if you want to talk to us about business, go to techiegurus.com. You can give us a phone call, email. You can comment down below. You can reach out to me personally. I'm on all social medias. But until next time, be safe, and I'll see you again soon.